Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Friday, August 15th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 603 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. And today we are previewing preseason game number 2. As tomorrow night, the New York Jets will take on the New York Giants in the annual Snoopy Bowl out at MetLife Stadium. As we did last week, we'll break down all the different positions, players to watch, offense, defense, special teams in this one as the New York Jets get set to check off another preseason game before they finish it off next week at MetLife Stadium against the Eagles to close out the preseason as preseason training camp and the summer rolls on here for the New York Jets. Tomorrow night, 7 Eastern, so just a little over 24 hours from now, the Jets will be back under the lights. Channels, how you can catch this game for the outside the New York audience, NFL Network. If you're in the local New York market, Jets broadcast will be on CBS. We've gotten last week, we of course heard that the Jet starters will play. The Jet starters, of course, did play last week, right? Justin Fields and the offense got a drive, went out there, went down, and scored. This week, Aaron Glenn said on Wednesday after joint practice ended at the Giants facility, he said the plan is the plan. He did not reveal whether or not the Jets starters will play, obviously meaning that he also didn't reveal how much they would play if they do play. I do think the Jets starters will play in this game, but in this preview, I do still want to kind of break down each position, talk a couple starters if they do play, but a lot of depth guys as well as we roll on here in the summer, some guys that have emerged this summer, some guys that had good 2 days of joint practices, if they can continue that here going into tomorrow night's game. So whether or not the starters play tomorrow for the Jets, I still think they will. That's just Glenn's motto. How much they will play, who knows? But it's something that still want to break it down. Lots to still look forward to in this game, even if some of these starters aren't out there tomorrow night. So we'll start with the quarterback, go down the list similar to how we did last week, of course, in the Packers game, which, of course, the Jets came away with the victory. If Justin Fields is out there tomorrow night, you want to continue to see him build on last preseason's game. Went out there, one drive, looked good, 3 of 4, couple quick passes, got Andrew Beck involved, found Tyler Johnson once as well, finished it off with the rushing touchdown. It was a smooth first drive for the starting offense. Fields looked comfortable. He looked good in the pocket. If he's back out there, you want to see that again, finding guys open, quick, easy passes, get him involved, get him comfortable, and get the change moving and continue to move on here with this progress this summer. Fields' legs, of course, are something that is more evident in games than when you see him in training camp practices, because it's sometimes tougher to tell in training camp practices how far these runs would go, how much he actually uses his legs. A lot of it is staying in the pocket, letting the play develop. But in a game, as he showed last week, his ability to move out of the pocket. So if he's out there tomorrow night, he obviously is one of the top players to watch for in this game, in preseason game number 2. Your other quarterbacks with Tyrod Taylor out up until week 1. It'll be the Adrian Martinez and Brady Cook show again. So those guys commanding the offense for the second team, for the third team, for some of these depth guys that you look forward to seeing in another game action. So those are the quarterbacks. In terms of the running backs, lots to look forward to here. This was a Jets team last week that ran the ball very well, 147 rushing yards for this Jets offense against Green Bay last week. That was led by Donovan Edwards, and I feel like we have to start with him. Donovan Edwards is one of the bigger names to watch going into tomorrow night's game. Last week, 9 carries, 42 yards. That was a very solid 4.7 yards per carry, which led the team. And that was also with that 70-plus yard touchdown run that he had that got called back because of holding. So if you add that 100 or you add that 70-yard touchdown, he's over 100 yards. His yards per carry skyrockets, and his night looks even better against Green Bay. But even taking that away, he looked very good. One of the better players on the field for this New York Jets team. And with Edwards, the big question is whether or not he's going to make this roster. And that's because, is this going to be a team that's going to hold 4 running backs? And something that I'm really interested in seeing tomorrow night from Donovan Edwards, not only can he build on that performance, because we've seen dominant preseason performances before that get followed up by a dud. So not only what he does from a run game perspective, but also does he see some action in special teams? Because that's ultimately what I think and how he will make this team, is if he can find a role, carve out a role for himself on special teams. Because if he can't, I don't think he's making this roster. So this week on Wednesday at joint practice, the second joint practice between these two teams, he was back returning punts, which was the first time he's done that this summer. So it feels like this is a Jets coaching staff going into tomorrow night's game, going into the practices this week, coming out of last week's game. They obviously see something in Donovan Edwards. You want to see him build on it, but now you look potentially, too, for him to provide some special teams value, because that's ultimately what his path would be to keeping him on this 53-man roster when cutdown day rolls around. Other names, Braylon Allen, he's so much fun to watch when he's got the ball in his hands. He's somebody that tomorrow looked good last week. The running lanes that were opening up for Braylon Allen were excellent. Breece Hall as well, if he's out there. Those are just, when those guys are out there, not much to evaluate, but guys that are just fun to watch, and they're going to lead the way, of course, in this running back room for this team here in 2025. So that's the run game. Biggest one, Donovan Edwards, can he build off of last week? Really was one of the stars of last week's game, specifically on the offensive side of the football. From a wide receiver perspective, I'm looking at the 2 Smiths tomorrow night. Arian Smith, starting with him, very, very good 2 days of joint practice against the Giants. And it's not just these last 2 practices against the Giants. Arian Smith has had a very, very strong summer and a really nice, surprising summer. I would put it that way. This was a guy coming out of college. We've talked about it so many times. All of the flaws that were in his game, all of the questions that were in his game coming out of Georgia, everything, all the concerns you've had for Arian Smith, rather, have been kind of put to the wayside. He has been excellent. His ability as a route runner to look good this summer, his ability to show off his speed, his ability, more importantly, to have sure hands so far this summer. I can't recall many drops, if any, happening in training camp, at least the practices that I've been in attendance for. And more importantly, his ability to go up and make some contested catches this summer has also been a very pleasant surprise. Wednesday was one of the biggest highlights. One of the bigger highlights of practice that day for the New York Jets was Arian Smith going up and getting a ball in tough coverage and bringing it down. That's something that you didn't expect to see out of him this summer, and you really didn't see a lot of in college, that you're seeing so far. He's been excellent. He's been a really nice surprise, and he's been an even better surprise because it's coming in a wide receiver position that needs all the help it can get behind Garrett Wilson. And the emergence of Arian Smith becoming more than just a burner in his first training camp is a real big positive. So you want to see him tomorrow night back in game action. Last week, I thought he looked good. He had 2 catches for 18 yards. He had the one almost catch down the field, which would have been a really nice play to kind of put an explanation point on his night Adrian Martinez just overthrew him, of course, out of the diving reach of Arian Smith. But seeing him back out there tomorrow after 2 really strong days and an overall great body of work this summer is something to keep an eye on. Brandon Smith as well. I've talked about this a little bit, and this week specifically, and even coming out of last week's game against Green Bay where he had 2 receptions, both of those were able to move the chains for the New York Jets offense last week. 2 catches for 23 yards, both going for the first down. Brandon Smith's a name that I really think, Lazard being out, Lazard hasn't shown you much of anything. I would still be surprised if this happens. But the fire behind this potentially happening, I think only heightens if Brandon Smith goes out there tomorrow night and has another good game. And that fire is the potential of the Jets going with Brandon Smith and then one of these other, Jamal Pritchett, Gibson, Corley, we'll see who all makes the team out of that, but potentially over Allen Lazard. Garrett Wilson, Josh Reynolds, Tyler Johnson, Arian Smith, those 4 are going to make the team. But I can make a strong case right now, and I think there's a real possibility that Brandon Smith could make this team over Allen Lazard. And with Allen Lazard out, he's been taking over a lot of those reps, and he's been making the most of those opportunities. And then your 6th, your final receiver in, if they hold 6, would be one of Pritchett, Gibson, Corley. I would assume it's probably Pritchett. But Brandon Smith's been great, and the chance of him making this roster is only increasing with another good preseason performance. He had a couple nice joint practices. He had a good game last week, and that's most important, right? Training camp, what you do in practice is one thing. Joint practice certainly hold a little bit more value just because it's against another team. But more importantly, what you do in games is the most important. And Brandon Smith last week showed you positives out there in Lambeau. Let's see it again tomorrow night at MetLife. And his chances of making this roster, taking a spot maybe from Allen Lazard, who would be easier to cut now because they did restructure his contract, as we all know, would only heighten. So I'm looking at the 2 Smiths tomorrow night. It's been the summer of the Smiths, if you will. Others, Tyler Johnson, Reynolds, Corley, Gibson, Pritchett. Of course, you keep an eye on all those guys. More specifically, Corley, Gibson, and Pritchett. Those 3 battling it out. Tyler Johnson, Josh Reynolds, they'll be on this football team. In terms of the tight end position, Mason Taylor, one of the big ones to watch. This is his first game. First opportunity last week, missed it because of the high ankle sprain. Was a pleasant surprise when he walked out onto the football field at the practice field at One Jets Drive on Tuesday. Coming off the high ankle sprain, felt like an injury that could potentially sideline him for the rest of the preseason, and you wouldn't see Mason Taylor again until week 1, which for a rookie would be unfortunate, especially in Mason Taylor's case, a rookie that is going to play a big role for this Jets team in 2025 as this team's tight end 1 and a key threat in the passing game behind Garrett Wilson. But that wasn't the case. He's back out there. So that's a positive. He'll get an opportunity tomorrow night to see his first NFL game action, which is really important, really good evaluation. We'll get to see tomorrow out of Mason Taylor. I mean, his first practice back in the joint practice, 7-on-7s, he was making a heck of a play. Diving ball, fresh off the high ankle sprain. He looked good. He's had a very good summer. Good to see him out there. Good to get some live game action in. Very interested to see how they incorporate him a bit. What's some of the ways Tanner Engstrand gets him involved tomorrow, because last week we saw Stone Smart get involved in the screen game, the most athletic play we've seen a Jets tight end make in a decade. So is there any of that in store for tomorrow? Do we kind of see a sneak peek of some of what Mason Taylor, how they can use him, get him open tomorrow night? That's something to keep an eye on. But just himself, in-game action, such valuable reps for him as a rookie who's going to play a big role. Stone Smart, building off of last week, building off a really strong summer. I personally think he's this team's tight end 2 right now. I think he's gone over Jeremy Ruckert, but even Jeremy Ruckert, I'll throw him in the mix as well. Can he show you anything? Last week, he was a non-factor. You didn't even know he was on the football field last week. That's not a place you want to be in as a tight end. Jeremy Ruckert, his case specifically, because it's year number 4. He's got to start to show you something. He's back with his college teammate. Like, show us something. I don't expect much, but he's another name to watch in that tight end room as you continue to try and find more production behind just Mason Taylor. So those are the main skill position. In terms of the trenches, this is another intriguing battle to watch tomorrow because Tuesday and Wednesday, Jets offensive line, Giants pass rush, were going at it. And the Giants pass rush over the 2 days definitely won. And I would say Wednesday probably a little bit more so, just because Tuesday, Olu was actually looked really, really good, was holding Kayvon Thibodeau, won a couple reps against Abdul Carter as well. Burns, Olu was a brick wall. Wednesday, there was starting to be some leaks on both sides, left tackle and right tackle, Membu and Olu. So on tomorrow night, I'm looking forward to, if it's this starting unit out there against this Giants pass rush, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Abdul Carter. I'm sure many of you have heard Kayvon Thibodeau's comments about Justin Fields and how he was running for his life essentially over the 2 joint practices, and it was tough to evaluate him, taking a direct shot at the Jets offensive line. I know it's a preseason game, but that certainly probably fuels them a little bit. Armand Membu against Brian Burns, Armand Membu against a Thibodeau, against an Abdul Carter. Same case with Olu. For all of these guys, interior guys against Dexter Lawrence, this entire offensive line against this pass rush, they've gotten the opportunity in the 2 joint practices now in a live game tomorrow night. That's a excellent battle to watch. And you also want to continue moving on from just the pass rush and what the Giants bring. You also want to see this offensive line continue to dominate in the run game, because they won the trench battle last week when it came to opening up the holes for the run game. Let's see that again this week. So pass protection, their ability to handle the pass rush of the New York Giants, that will be on full display. But also, let's see them maul in the run game like we saw last week against Green Bay, which resulted in the 147 rushing yards the Jets had as a team last week. So those are the offensive line notes, and specifically Membu too, because really good game last week. Struggled the 2 days of joint practices. Couple days now to learn from it. Let's see what he can do tomorrow night in his second preseason game, second game action in the NFL. In terms of the defensive line, switching on over here to the defensive side of the football, it's the summer of Jay Tufele. Jay Tufele, what a week last week. He followed it up with another good couple of days of joint practice as well. He was getting into the backfield. He was active once again. 1.5 sacks last week. More importantly, he had the touchdown recovery on the Leonard Taylor strip sack. Tufele picked it up, landed on it, I should say, in the end zone. What a game it was for him. What a summer it's been for him. I've quietly talked about Jay Tufele in a lot of my training camp recap episodes leading into last week's game as somebody who has flown under the radar but has had a good training camp, and he went out there and just dominated. Now, you're not going to get a dominant Jay Tufele performance like that every single night. He's not Aaron Donald, although he looked like Aaron Donald, but still seeing him build off of that. And if he can go out there tomorrow and be active and you notice him again, getting pressures, getting into the backfield, that's a huge positive. I also look at Leonard Taylor. He's somebody that's having another excellent summer, had a good summer last year, which helped him make the team as a UDFA. He had the strip sack last week. His ability to get into the backfield has been noticeable. In a rotational role last year, looked good. This is a guy who, only entering year number 2, is another name to keep an eye on in that defensive tackle room. So I look at both those guys, Tufele, Leonard Taylor, and then, of course, just others. Fidarian Mathis, when you look at the edge rushers, Michael Clemens, Rashad Weaver, Tyler Barron, can Clemens go a whole game without committing a penalty? Is that too much to ask for? And I know I'm sound like I'm joking, but I'm serious. Can Clemens just be disciplined? I mean, come on. It was week 1 of the preseason last week, and this guy's already fighting, already picking up penalties after the play. Eric Watts. Heck, even throw Derek Nottie in there, because Derek Nottie's a guy that, even though he signed on as a free agent, no guarantee he makes his roster. He has been essentially a non-factor in training camp and the first preseason game. So he's somebody that he's got to show something, or else there's a really good chance that I don't think he's making this team, and you probably take a Fedarian Mathis or one of these other guys over him when it comes to this 53-man roster. So that's the defensive line. The summer of J. Tufele, the preseason of Leonard Taylor, because he dominated the preseason last year as well. Two guys that headline this week's game coming off the weeks they had last week. In terms of the linebackers, I look at Jamin Davis. He had a good, strong game last week, registered a sack. More importantly with Davis, Marcelino McCrary-Ball, he had the late penalty last week, got taken off the field, and the Aaron Glenn clip that, of course, has gone viral, where he was yelling at him, holding him accountable, that was Marcelino McCrary-Ball. But more importantly, Jamin Davis came on, and that next play that he replaced Marcelino McCrary-Ball for, he got a sack. So that linebacker 3 spot's a little bit of a battle between those two guys. I think Balls had the better training camp, but Davis did better in the preseason game. So tomorrow night, you're looking at Davis, you're looking at Ball, both guys competing for that linebacker 3 spot. For Ball, you're looking at a bounce back here, play penalty-free football, fly around a bit, because he's got some speed to him. That's been noticeable in the practices. And for Davis, it's building on what was a good outing last week against Green Bay. So I look at both those linebackers. Of course, the rookie, Kiko Maui-Noa. Can he show you anything as he continues, his first training camp preseason games here? And of course, if Quincy and Sherwood out there, those two guys are going to be fun to watch as always. But it's mainly the depth there that you're looking at. And then in terms of the secondary, I look at Malachi Moore. He made a couple nice plays on Wednesday at joint practice. He had a good day. Last week was showing off some of his versatility, was playing some corner, was playing some safety. Going back to his college days, he was a corner, then switched to safety. So the Jets were using him in both those roles in the game, which I thought was certainly notable. Something to keep an eye on going into this week. And just the general Malachi Moore. He's had a really good summer. His physicality, his competitiveness, a lot of what he does fits into what Glenn wants. I really like what I've seen from Malachi Moore, so getting an opportunity tomorrow night in his second preseason game will be good to watch. Couple of depth guys, Jarius Monroe, Jordan Clark, Dean Clark, have all made a couple plays. Jarius Monroe has quietly had a strong summer. He's somebody to keep an eye on tomorrow night. Something that I noticed last week with some of the secondary guys that I wanted to bring up again. Dean Clark last week was working with the second team, which was interesting because it's usually been Jarius Monroe. In the practices, it's been Monroe, but in the game, it was Dean Clark. So I thought that was interesting. That's something to keep an eye on tomorrow. I know we're getting kind of really into the weeds of this roster. These are all depth guys, but it is something to keep an eye on when it comes to finding these final pieces that are going to round out this 53-man roster. So both Clarks, Jarius Monroe, and then Brandon Stevens. If he's out there tomorrow, you won't see Sauce. No need. We'll see Sauce week 1. Brandon Stevens, if he's out there tomorrow, I'd like to see him get tested a little bit. He's had a very strong summer. I'd like to see them throw the ball a little bit his way. I don't think he was targeted at all in Green Bay. The reason I would like to see them throw the ball his way a little bit is he's done a very good job this camp in terms of playing the ball and breaking passes up and getting a couple interceptions, getting his hand on the football, playing the ball, all that stuff. Something that he didn't do well in Baltimore. In a live game action, I'd like to see him tomorrow. Let's see him get targeted a bit, and let's see him, get his hand on get his hand on the football and be able to break up some plays and show off a little bit of the improved ball hawking ability that hopefully he has going into 2025. And then Quantez Stiggers as well. He should get some more reps tomorrow with Sauce not playing. So he'll get a lot of opportunities. He'll get a lot of run. And Malachi Moore, it was nickel last week as well. I think I mentioned he played corner, nickel, safety, so that versatility. That's pretty much it, though, in the secondary room. Not a ton to look for. That should be a strength of this team. And in terms of special teams, couple notes. Kick, punt returners, that continues to be something to look for. Gibson will be out there, so he's going to get an opportunity. I think he's on the outside looking in right now. I personally think Jamal Pritchett is ahead of him, but all it could take is one good game from Gibson, and we could be looking at next week's game against Philly kind of being the deciding factor. But Pritchett, Gibson, Corley, Kanena Wangu, all guys to keep an eye on. Special teams. Donovan Edwards, like I said, does he play a role tomorrow? Do we see him at all as a punt returner? Do we see him even as a gunner? Can he do anything on special teams in a game that can help his chances to make this team and help the Jets' reasoning to keep 4 running backs on this roster, especially if you're going to keep Kanena Wangu as your kick returner? Your other way to keep another running back that would essentially be a special teams piece would be Donovan Edwards showing something on special teams. So we'll look out for that. And I just talked about Stiggers, but Stiggers had a really nice play last week as a gunner, bringing down McCole Harmon right away. And that actually resulted in the J. Tufele sack a couple plays later or the Leonard Taylor strip sacks J. Tufele recovery in the end zone for a touchdown because Stiggers pinned him back. So that's something to keep an eye on tomorrow. Austin McNamara had a couple really big punts as well. I think tomorrow night, he's going to be this team's punter, it seems to be, but tomorrow night could certainly secure that. And, of course, the kickers as well. Mainly Mevis, though, because he seems to just be a camp like at this point. So that's it. Preseason game number 2, Jets versus Giants. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. What are you looking for tomorrow night? Offensively, defensively, special teams. What do you keep an eye on? Players to watch, position battles, all that fun stuff. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Appreciate your support. As always, we'll be back right after the game tomorrow with my recap, so stay tuned. And until next time, Jets, 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 Jets.